Well, hello guys. Welcome to the Thinking About Me podcast, video cast via Zoom. 2020 has been definitely a crazy year for us all, and Project Human Think has had to adjust and readjust and find ways to communicate with you guys and communicate with ourselves in so many different ways, just like everybody else is. And I've gotten the opportunity to learn more about myself and make a better intro and so many other things. So I'm so excited to welcome you back to the Thinking About Me podcast, and it's a new way about mental health. That's really what it's about, a new way to think about it. Today on the podcast, I have the most beautiful, talented, wickedly talented human that I have ever met, and I am one of those people, as you know, I'm a human who meets a human, and I'm in love with a human, and they have to accept it or they get rid of me. Those are the two ways, and this beautiful soul has just accepted me and accepted this journey of my life through this and guided me honestly to grow up a lot. She doesn't know that very well, but her strength and her life, her just learning through her and being around her genuinely has made me grow up. And that's saying a lot because I don't want to grow up. I am like the biggest kid in the world. But it's made me grow up and be a better leader because she is so determined. She is so dedicated to her own self. Even though she might not think it sometimes, but she really is in her path of her life. And it's awesome to see that and translate into me, someone who hasn't had that focus as much. So let me introduce to you guys the human that's, again, like my soulmate. She knows what I mean. My human, Nicole Labadie, right? Yes, it only took 3 years. Labadie, and she is not only an amazing human, but she is an actress, she is a coach, she is an award-winning director, she's a screenwriter, she is a philanthropist, she is a coach, a friend, a human, a partner, everything and more I could ask for in just a human's existence. That's what she is. So I'm gonna take it over, or let her take it over, introduce herself better than I did. Tell us who you are and what you're about.
So I don't think I can do better than you did, because you make me sound cool. My name is Nicole Labadie. I, like Adela said, am a creator, I'm a director, I tend to find myself in leadership positions, although I would feel like I'm maybe more like a follower, but I tend to find myself in leadership positions, specifically when it comes to creative endeavors. And I also sew and draw. I do all the creative things because I just can't seem to get enough.
Let me just interrupt really quick your intro, which is what I forgot. She's also a big entrepreneur, guys. Which she just mentioned sewing. She runs her own business called Pink Girl Closet, which also has sponsored most of our projects and things that we've done for Project Human. So as soon as you said it, I was like, that was like a huge thing I missed. So let me make sure that they know, like, she's an amazing entrepreneur and a businesswoman and an owner. And like, let's not skip over that fact.
I was trying to plug it on the podcast.
I forgot to put it in. I forgot. That's a very important thing to me. So let's pause and take that minute. So let me, while we're at it, so tell me about this and how you started into the sewing part, because like I've just recently, again over the last year and a half, met you a little bit, and like tell me about your business and Pink Girl Closet. Give us a little background to that.
So I like cosplay a lot, but I also like the idea of like the Disney bounding and things like that, like dressing up as characters without really like dressing up as them. So like closet cosplay and things like that. But I was like looking for things and then like couldn't find exactly what I wanted. Even to like a sunflower dress. Like I really wanted a sunflower dress and I like couldn't find any that I was like really into, or like they were super cheap or whatever. And so I just was like, I'm sick of it. I bet I could sew, and I figured it out. I had somebody help me with a dress that I really, really wanted to make, and I had no idea where to start. And she was like, this is one of the most complicated patterns you could have chosen. Are you sure you don't want to do a different one? And I was like, no, I need this one, please. So she showed me how to do it. And ever since then, I've been a maniac and sewing and sewing and sewing and collecting fabric, because, you know, those are two different hobbies. sewing and collecting fabric.
Boy, do we know those are two different hobbies. Do we know?
So ever since I learned how to make that one dress, the rest has been like history. And I decided eventually I was going to run out of space for my little projects, so I would try and sell them.
And she's on Etsy, guys, so make sure you find her out. But like I love what you just said about that. Like one of the reasons why it's so important to like highlight that part of your moment of conversation where you just said, number one, you said I couldn't find what I wanted to find, and so I took a chance. I didn't know what I was doing. Of course, this is why I love you. You would go for the most complicated thing, because like I'm like eighth black hole and you don't think you are, and I'm like, no, she's there, she's going for it. And you did it. And then the number two thing you said was that or number three is that you said I decided. Like I decided, and then you did it because you made a decision. I think that's so important when you talk about mental health and changing your life and finding the things that make you happy and the things that you want, or starting a business, creating things. You have to decide. So like out of that, how did it feel to make that decision and where you are, like compared to where you were then? Like, and I can like think about your decision to sew and go like, oh my God. So like now, again, you run your own business, and whatever that is, it's your business, and there's a difference in that decision and in that moment that you take. So walk me through a little bit of that.
So it's really cool. A lot of our endeavors in the past, and by our, I mean like my family, a lot of our decisions tend to like run their course and then they're done with. And so like we'll collect a bunch of stuff, get really excited about it, and then kind of let it fall by the wayside. So it's really kind of cool to find something that makes me so happy that I want to do it all the time, and I don't ever get tired of it. It's always challenging. It's especially challenging to me in senses of like mathematics is not my strong suit, and that's a majority of what sewing
Everything is in life, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't make math as important as it should in that way.
I've managed to avoid it, except in some cases, but this is one of the bigger ones in my life where I was like, naturally I would be drawn to something that would challenge me in that way. So it's very challenging. It's definitely interesting to figure out how to like run a small business or like operate a small business when you have to work like a regular full-time job. So it's definitely interesting trying to figure out that juggle without like completely letting it drop, which I have a couple of times. But that's kind of rewiring my brain after being like trained to let things fall by the wayside. But like I have so much fabric that I have to get through before I can just quit.
I know the feeling. I know.
I don't see myself quitting anytime soon though. I really love it a lot. It's one of my favorite things, like seeing it go from a wad of fabric that you got in a store like this big to laying out the pattern and pinning it down and then cutting everything out, and you have this stack of two-dimensional pieces, and seeing it be able to like fit curves and concaves in the body once you sew it together. It's really neat.
Isn't it like exhilarating? Like I think that's
It's
the
so
word
cool.
you get, like when you're like, oh my God. And I have to actually show you, because I was going to show you today, but like one of the pieces from a project we just finished, Checkmate, I have a piece of fabric that I had cut up, like I had cut up or whatever. I was like, what am I going to use it for? I'm going to use it for something. I did it. It just didn't. So as I was cleaning and prepping, I actually had the exhilarating moment in the middle of my cleaning yesterday, and I thought of you, and I was pinning this thing, and I was like, this is so Nicole. Like, oh my God, I lost my mind. It's just like white. How I wish I would have made that for you for the thing, but you weren't on the white side, so it wouldn't matter. But I completely understand the exhilaration of when you have this like huge piece of something, and then you put it together, and it comes into a vision, and that's what it's like. It's a decision to make something into a reality. And
yeah,
you made a great point on the whole rewiring and your brain, and that's one of the things that I don't think we as I want to call it as a common society understand or even have the conversation with, is that like we're trained for so many years in our life to do certain habits, rituals, things, and words and thoughts and meanings. And as we get older, we discover that they don't necessarily apply to us, or they don't fit into our thoughts, meanings, perceptions, and things like that. And what you said was our course, like in our family, you guys run it, and that's the same thing with me. You know, we get to a point where it was like the challenge is on, and it's like, well, it's not a necessary challenge I want to take on. And so like, you know, all by the wayside, because you don't perceive it to be an important challenge. And the conversation I was having with myself this morning is that, and like when I was thinking about how I was gonna like talk about this and you, was that like because you're like want to do that, whether you realize it or not, like I saw that as a part of who you are, like because that to me is who you are. You're a finisher. You're not someone who leaves things by the wayside. You're not someone who is like, I'm gonna do this and just be like, oh yeah, I'll get to it like next year. Like no, you're like, I'm gonna do this, we're gonna do it today and be done. And that's something that within me has been like a part of me since I was a child. However, again, the way we were raised, it literally, which made for some very unhappy times in our lives because like some happy, unhappy times. So I wanted to ask you, you and I have had some in-depth conversations about our own personal lives and things like that in our stories. And so like, you're young, you're young and you've been through so much in your life. But I wanted to ask you, how is that rewiring, and going back into my comment, like rewiring your brain is such a hard thing because you have to actually consciously think about the thing you're doing. Like right now, I have to think about this movement I'm making because it's a part of mine wanting to be a better presenter, better communicator, better leader, better all these things. And that means that like I can't just be all over the place all the time. But in order to do, like, I have to consciously be like, whoa, 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 okay, like that doesn't fit into who I want to be or who I want to be. How did, like, what did it take for you to start rewiring your brain? Like, how were you able to consciously like awaken your mind for you to like know now, just like you said, like, I like, is it like it's connected here to your feeling? Because to me, that's what it is. Like, you know it. And then if it makes you feel bad, like you want to change it, which is where you decide to change it, which is where the action comes in and then we change it. But how do you keep that? Like, you know that, and how do you center that, knowing that like your thoughts and your feeling and that action like have to play into that whole world together to make you happy, if that makes sense, because they do.
So it's not constant. I let things fall by the wayside all the time. I'll start a project and get really excited about it and then decide like, well, this isn't productive or this isn't like helping me meet my goals or whatever the case is. Typically it's production related, and I tend to let things go when they're not like productive, which is unhealthy. So that's kind of another thing that I need to break. But I'm also like a huge perfectionist. So I also like, if I don't rush something, it's probably because it's not coming out right. And then I get frustrated and then I like don't want to do it because I don't want it to be imperfect when it's done. So I have a lot of like sewing projects that are like much bigger projects. Like I've got a ball gown that I'm working on and the sleeves don't have a pattern and I don't really know how to go about doing it. So I like have kind of left it alone for a minute. So it's not constant and I do not have the strength all the time to wrestle with that monster. But it's active choices. It's like active thinking through it. Like, okay, well, I don't know how to make this sleeve work for this. So let me grab some fabric that I don't care about as much. That project is long gone. Those people don't want that thing anymore that they wanted from you before. And when they changed their mind, you were like, well, great, what do I do with all this ugly fabric? So I have this ugly fabric that I'm not going to use for anything else. Like, why don't we just chop that up and try and make a pattern? And then we can cut the seams out and start it with the right fabric. It's just kind of mindset, I guess.
Active mindset.
Yeah. And it's not always active, but I have to kind of like facilitate that with myself. I kind of have to like talk myself through it. Like, okay, well, let's get the ugly fabric and like, let's work through it. So it's not all the time, but when I finally like break myself out of it, it's almost always because I get upset that I've let this happen again. Mm-hmm. And so like I get upset with myself, which kind of warrants some kind of solution because I just don't want to be upset in that space, in that time, and stay upset. Like, what am I going to do about it? And that kind of like, so what are you going to do about it? Because no one's going to solve this problem for you.
Right.
That kind of question is usually what kicks my butt into gear.
No,
Go ahead. Gets me to like do what I need to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say I completely like literally 100% to the T, like I'm in your train of thought and process. Like, and maybe just a little bit more because like I've been at it for a little bit longer now, and like I'm realizing how much OCD I have. I'm realizing how much perfection
Hmm.
tendencies I have. I'm realizing how many, I call it ticks. I'm realizing how many ticks I have. And they're not necessarily healthy ticks. So they're good for the outcome and the production of the things. Like they're great for will, they're great for determination, they're great for kicking our butt to where they need to be, but they're not great for everyday life. And that's, I think, the challenge for, I think, both of us has been for that is navigating the everyday life, because we know we can work under pressure. We know we can succeed. We know we can get through it. And we know we can be happy. Like, we know we can turn it on and off. Like, we know
Yeah.
how to do that because it's part of our self-defense mechanism through our life, because our stories are so similar in the trauma, obviously so different in the situations, but so similar in the trauma that, like, that's the only way we knew how. Like, it
Hmm.
happened, like, like, you gotta survive. And so now that we're not surviving anymore, that living concept is so new. It's like, well, no, like today I should, like, I don't have to sit here and scrub this. Like for me, I have to clean everything before I ever start something. Like
Yep.
it's ridiculous. It is like I cleaned it last night and prepped, but because I
Yeah.
came in and there was dust that settled, like I had to wipe everything, and I didn't do it today. Like because I was like, no, Adela, that's something like you have to like recognize. Like this was a conversation again, that walkthrough you talk about, and then I'm sitting here going like, as I'm having this conversation with you, like dust, dust, but I'm also actively going like, it's not important, Adela. Like you understand, it's an urge. It's learning to control the urges, the ticks, these things. And as healthy as they may be for our creative world, like, right, they're not healthy for everyday life. And I think that's what most of us in our everyday life we struggle with, because we're so good on the grand scheme of things, but not everyday dust thing. Like I'm not great at having this dust here, and it's freaking me out. However, like I'm gonna like sit here and I'm gonna compose it. I'm not gonna let my body get anxious. Like I'm not, because I understand that's not, like, I understand it's not a big thing to like freak out about.
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's been interesting. It's so interesting. And again, it's so crazy to hear you say it, because that's word for word how production, like that's the thing, active production. Like we're both so
Yeah.
active production rather than that time frame when we don't have something and we're like, I am not good. I am not active. Like I'm not doing anything. What am I here for? What good am I doing? Like I'm lazy. I'm not,
I'm
like I
wasting
sat
my life.
oh
Yeah.
my God. And that whole wasting my time, my life, like I
Yeah.
so much in the last hour and a half that I played Animal Crossing. But like sometimes you just need to
Video games get me so bad. Video
me
games get me
too.
so bad.
Cause like they're the one thing that you can like sit in and just get lost into. And like for me, Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, or like Minecraft are like the things that like I can't get out because it's creating. So like for hours I could get lost into, and as soon as I get out of it, I'm like, I am miserable. I am like not
Yep.
happy. I am
Yep.
so down on myself. I do not like today. Like it is a waste of your life. You could have done the laundry, and you could have done the dishes, or you could have wrote this stuff. You could have done that. You could have done that. Instead, you sat for 4 hours and played Minecraft. What is wrong with you? But that's
But in the same
okay.
way that you have to like retrain your body and retrain your brain to like check your privilege or to understand that you may not always be in the right. You know, those are growing things that you learn as you grow up. You learn how to communicate. You learn how to break those aggressive tones that you had when, you know, you were growing up or whatever. You know, I didn't learn how to communicate with people or how to articulate my feelings until I was almost an adult. And I learned from other people in my life. Because my ability to communicate was very limited. It's still pretty limited, but I feel like I can explain and express my feelings a little bit better because I learned from other people, because I was like, I like the way that they communicate and that makes me feel good when they talk to me like that, so maybe I should do it like that. And I just kind of like have to learn and articulate from other people, but everybody does that and everybody does it to some extent. And the choice that you make, like I literally, looking back, like remember thinking, I like the way that them talking to me like that makes me feel.
Yes.
So almost every way that I articulate myself now was based on that choice, that decision that day. And like, I've grown since then, and you pick up different things from different people, and you pick up different things from different articles that you read and things like that. But in the same way that you train your brain to like reformat the things that you say, the things that you physically do with your body to express yourself, like you kind of do the same thing with mental health. You do the same thing with checking your privilege. You do the same thing when analyzing a new situation. Like you decide and you train your brain, but you can always train your brain to do different things as well. So in that same vein, like I learned how to articulate my feelings from somebody else, but I've also seen so many articles that are like, why are you asking yourself this question when you could be asking yourself this question? Why are you saying, I'm worthless, I wasted my time, what am I doing with my life? When you could say, it's okay to rest. Like, it's
The
okay to
mind-blowing
rest.
thing to be like, to say it's okay to rest and not think and not be responsible.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to like sit down for 2 hours and like just literally be irresponsible to do nothing. It's
Like,
okay.
what am I doing with my life versus your worth isn't based on your productivity. Like that kind of like retraining of your brain, like that's really important.
Yes.
And you know, I'm not saying that my family was abusive at all. I am saying that when I was younger, a lot of the responsibilities fell on me in the house. So a lot of the chores fell on me. And when I didn't get the chores done, I wasn't allowed to do other things. You know, like if my sisters didn't do the chores either, none of us were allowed to do anything. And so that kind of like necessary productivity, like that kind of leads to where I'm at now, where I'm like, I can't relax until everything is clean.
Because we feel that like we may not be able to sit down and play a video game because that's right. That's the reward for us. Like that's the reward. But for us too, I think it's also like we're also very high functioning. Like we do suffer both. We both suffer from our own anxieties and our own things. We're very high functioning in what we do. And I think it's very important to recognize that like for high functioning humans, like where that stems from is from the trauma in our childhood, whether it was good or bad trauma. And I call it trauma because I can't say like, I'm going to say to me, like my trauma was terrible, right? But at the same time, it was good trauma because like I am who I am because of it. So, like I can take good and bad from it. So like good, bad trauma, whatever your trauma is as a child where we develop, again, where we develop all those things and those, what we see, what we hear, what we do is based on our environment and our circumstance because that's all we know. And the moment something within us is questioned or judged and we have to face that, like I think that's where the mental health like complete downfall of our own self breaks, because like now we're questioning everything we know. And if we question our own families, if we question our own friends and our own environment, well, now we're just terrible for questioning and we're an outcast and how could you go against and for whatever, like all these other things versus like I may be the bridge between these two circumstances that like I'm supposed to be.
You absolutely should question everything all the time, including yourself, and most importantly, yourself.
All the time. And that's what I realized, because I remember specifically, like I remember at a young age when I questioned some things about things that were happening. And I remember being told like, well, it's the family way, it's this way, it's where you're from, it's this way. And like it didn't sit well in here, right? Like it didn't sit well in the heart because like I knew in the heart that they were wrong, but I was a child. So as a child, I had no knowledge.
You'd be seen and not heard.
Exactly. Or not even heard, but felt. Like I think that's the difference too, is like we always, that's what I've learned. We always discredit the feeling of a child and base it off of a knowledge. You're right. We don't know. You're right. But that doesn't mean we don't understand the feeling as children to know what is right or what is wrong. Like we feel it within it's our gut instinct. It's the thing that everybody says, hey, trust your gut. Well, if we don't train children to trust their gut at the young age within here and then work through that gut, like that gut is going to get you through stuff. That gut's going to get you in trouble too. Like that gut is going to be you got to understand. But if you understand that that decision you're making off of here is either going to lead these consequences or these, like you can learn to rationalize and be more logical about the actions you're taking. That was the thing like I had to learn over these last years, like especially with starting Project Human and like meeting you and Will and all these humans in there. It's like for me everything was real time. Like everything had to happen in this moment, like real time. So if I were to say like this project we did, like Like I would have literally been losing my mind a year and 2 years ago over this, that it's not done in real time. It's not out at the time. Like it's not out at the time that we did it, because we did it. It's done. It should be out. Right. Like it shouldn't.
But there's so much that still needs to get done, and it needs to be perfect.
Understanding that, like, no, not even just understanding that you're allowed to make things and do things in your timeline in your life, and you're allowed to keep it to yourself, and you're allowed to present it. Wait a minute, you're allowed to present it at your time and pace, and it does not have to be relevant to your, like, to someone else's time and space. And that to me was like the biggest breakthrough I could have had. Not to say that, like, again, I'm not in it every day where I'm like, doesn't have to be real time. Like, you can hold on a second before, like, literally quickly responding to someone. Like, you don't have to respond in medicine that someone is, or you don't have to, like, react. That's the thing, is you do not have to react in a moment, where we're all just so taught, like, Nicole, I don't like that you and I were late this morning. I'm mad at you. Like, the reaction in a moment, like, no, okay, like, both of us needed our coffee. We're good. Let's go. Like, there's no, there's no reason to react to something so simple. But again, when you're taught in that, like, from that moment, that your smallest decision that you make as a child, like, will be a negative or a positive consequence, depending on what, again, your situation is that you're like, that's how you're going to learn to think. That's how you're going to learn to process, is that, well, I did not finish my homework. I'm going to fail and be the most terrible person. I didn't finish my homework, but my mommy and daddy are going to help me out and get me out of it. Like, it doesn't matter what the situation is. It's, again, I didn't, or I did do. And your dependency on someone else is like putting your responsibility and your accountability on someone else, whether it's good or bad. And learning that, like, changed how I view things now. That whole questioning yourself, like, I don't question anybody but myself. And for the reason that, like, if I don't question myself first, 100% to the T of it, then what the fuck, pardon my French, but what the fuck am I questioning you for?
Yeah.
Like, what am I
questioning? And part of my growth was people, like, holding me accountable. People that were far smarter than me at a far younger age that were like, hey, why are you talking like that? You could just not. Like, you could just mind your business. And at first, I was like, how dare you? Like, I'm allowed to speak my opinion. But of course, I was in the wrong. And taming down that first reaction and, like, learning how to, like, maintain myself in that kind of situation, that was a really important lesson for me to learn. And that people check me because they care about me. And they could have just blocked me or done something else. But somebody coming onto my social media and being like, hey, why are you talking like that? You could just not. You could just keep your mouth shut. Or maybe do some research before you just
post or
state an opinion about something that you don't know about. And I was like, you're right. So you just have to kind of, like, retrain yourself, and, like, you should question yourself and you should question the other people around you. Like, if you don't like the way that somebody is acting, or if you know are on a particular subject or something like that, like, you should question the people around you, and you should want them to be better, especially if you do care about them. But most of all, you should check yourself first. And you should check in with your brain, and you should check in with your heart, you should check in with your body, and you should learn how to cope with the things that you need to cope with. For me, it's issues with productivity. I fill up my plate and then I complain that my plate's too full.
Ain't that the truth? And yeah, I've tried to say now not complain, because like complaining would imply that I don't want to do it. Like, and I want to do it. That's why I did it in the first place. So I use the word I bitch about it. And so because it makes me feel a little better. And then it also makes me go, like, if I'm bitching, nobody wants to hear my bitching. Like, nobody wants to literally hear me go, like, you knew what you were doing. Like, you signed on to do 18 people. You signed on for 18 projects. You signed on to do this and this and this and this. And now you want to complain about it or bitch about it?
Yeah.
Like, complaining means that, like, you're just, like just sad. Like, to me, that's how I take it. Like, but bitching about it is I'm just like, and blah, blah, because I want the attention. Like, I've learned that. Like, I want the attention. Like, if I bitch about it, I'm getting the attention that I want, that I'm just like, whatever. I don't need to, like, you don't need to pick me up. You don't need to tell me how great of a job I'm doing. I'm just here to bitch about it because I know what I did. Complaining, I'm sitting here, need the validation that I am in the right for what I did. And it's like, you're not, Adela. You are absolutely not. If you are sitting here having somebody, and that's what you taught me, that's what like others taught me, is that like the difference for me, again, my brain is like, Adela, you're complaining for this is like your validation, your need to be like, you're so great and you're so awesome and oh my God. And by the way, guys, I have that all the time. Like all the time. That need in here is like ridiculous because that's what I grew up with. Like I didn't have that. I didn't have a good job for your dishes. It wasn't good enough. You didn't do a good enough job. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Again, that responsibility. And then now you're here going like, I need that validation versus like, I'm admitting I'm bitching for what the things that I did. I don't need you to pick me up. I don't need you to do nothing. I don't even need you to help me. I just need you to look at it and be like, you stupid Della. Why did you do that? Why? Because now I have to question you because like you knew better. And it's helped me so much because like you did that to me. You checked me a couple of times. So did Ashley. You guys checked me through this other project. And I was like, stop bitching. Stop bitching. Because you don't need it. Like, you know, you can do the job. So I think that's such
For me, it gets to a point where I just don't want to do things anymore. And that's typically when I start to drop things like sewing or drawing. And then when I feel better or when something has like come off my plate, like I finished something or for whatever other reason it's gone. Like I haven't sewn in a while because I've been doing Checkmate and working and doing something else. And I just didn't have the time that I wanted to be able to like focus on it. Among all the other 2020 things that we've been dealing with, I just haven't been feeling it. And so I tend to like let things go that I actually enjoy doing. So no drawing, no painting, no video games, no TV, no sewing, no any of that. But I'll just come home and sleep and then wake up and do work.
because that's what, but that's at times I've learned that like with creatives though, that's something that especially creatives who come out learning that they're creatives like later on in their life versus being creative from the beginning. Like I didn't know I was creative. Like I didn't know I was creative as a child, but like learning later I was creative. So we're both like ingrained in this 9-to-5 world. We're both ingrained in this like structure of world of like, what is it, blue collar, white collar, whatever color it is, like that's how you're supposed to be. And it's like, well, so we have this time period where our minds and our brains and our body is like, this is what needs to be done because this is how you're supposed to do it. And we fall back into that trap of it where we do let that go by the wayside. We do let our things that we love and enjoy because it's not the structured business. It's not the 9-to-5 corporate way. And I live with it.
And so those are the first things to get cut when you're busy.
Exactly. Because again, you fall back into what 20-30 years of training into corporate world. And like, that's like, you have the experience in there. So of course you're going to fall back into what you know. So I think that's been a cool like recognition and challenge. I want to ask you like 2 or 3 more questions. Number 1 question I want to ask you is, what are your aspirations?
My aspirations. I would love for Pin Girl Closet to get some traction and take off. That kind of requires a little more work on my part, but at some point I would like to be able to do that. And at some point I would like to be able to do it exclusively, like have that be my only job, if not a strong contender for my only job. So at some point I would just like to be able to do that. I'm working on it and slowly I'm getting there, but it's very slow going right now. So my aspiration would be to just do that. I would like to direct a few more things in my life. But I don't know that that's like something I want to do exclusively. I do think I would like to do it like more often or more in a like consistent theater environment. I tried a few years ago to get something Shakespeare related started, like Shakespeare in the Park kind of, but in Jacksonville. And I just am way too busy, so it never did anything. I had a lot of people that wanted to be involved, so that was exciting. And I had a pretty grand idea of what I wanted to do, but that's just another one of the things that's just gonna have to wait for me to like have more time to do it. And now COVID, so I'm kind of glad it didn't happen because now it's like I wouldn't have wanted to take this much of a break from it just because we can't do anything together. So kind of glad it didn't happen, kind of sad it didn't happen, but it'll happen eventually. I think that's most of what I would want to direct or be part of. But that's pretty much it. I don't have
so what are your
like career aspirations?
Well, no, owning your own business and having, like, that's a pretty damn big career aspiration too. If you're like, I want my sewing to be, I'm in the same boat. Like, I just had to close down a business, and like my biggest thing is my nonprofit. Like, that's my life. I know that no matter what for my life, whether I make money on it or not, like, I will do this forever. Like, this is what I'm designed to do. But is the aspiration in that same level, like, as the independent woman and financial freedom and like all that good stuff? Yeah, like, I would love for my design line to come out and do the same thing and like take off and do this, because that's where I want to be for fashion. So like, but again, just like you said, it requires more time and more things to be put into, but that doesn't mean we're not putting no time into it, even if, and that's the point I think that I'm trying to make now too, is that it doesn't matter how much time you're putting into something. Like, your aspiration is to be the designer, to have Pink Girl Closet, to be the business that it wants to be, and these things, then like, they can happen. It's just going to take a little longer than what we want it to take, because we are prioritizing other things. And understanding that, it's like, okay, well then, like, I am working towards it, so I am being productive. And now you can also rationalize your mind, being like, I'm not being productive at all, versus no, like, an hour and a half being spent into this, or like what we just did with Checkmate and these other like things where I'm like, I'm sewing this, like, this. Okay, cool. Like, what I'm doing from that is learning that I want my seams to be this way, that I want this to be this way, that I want that I want all these little details to be perfected before I even get it out. So sure, I'll trial and error and all of this stuff. And like, if it looks good right now, it'll look better down the road. So like, learning that was a great productivity hack for me, being able to be like, well, I am putting some time into it. So it doesn't have to be all of it. And managing that time has been a great thing. So like, yeah, but again, going back into like, that's really like, you're already doing it. So like, little by little, it doesn't matter. Just like with Project Human, like, I didn't think this would ever get to this point when we started. Like, I did it. And to know that like, the continued patience and the continued work and the continued hours, even if a little at times, even if I let it fall at times, like,
my thing is always like, because I also sell on like other platforms where I just submit a design and they do all of the work aside from that, which doesn't grant a huge profit, but I also know if I were to pour a lot of energy and time into it, it could, like Pink Girl Closet. But I have a couple of things that are kind of like that, where like, it's just kind of put out there, and then when somebody orders it, I can take care of it. But I always say, like, if it pays for a coffee this month, I'll be happy.
Girl, you know what? Like, I want you to know that's our clip dead. And like, hey, like, if it pays for coffee this, and then that's I think the beautiful thing about our life in this generation in 2020, and like in this century of generations and creatives growing and humans evolving, is that like, we do value our time. Like, we're really like, that's something I didn't learn about until recently. And like, so what, I made all this and I made $2. Well, that $2 it just bought me my coffee, and I'm okay with that. But then I did get to put in like 15 hours into 17 different things that I do like, whether they're panned out or not. Like, I put in 15 hours in 17 different things. How many hours have you put into two things? And that's always been my mindset now. Like, I'm like, how many hours have you put into two things? If you can't, like, if you haven't done two things where you put in your whole 24 hours into, whether that's your sleep, your mind, health, business, relate, like, two things versus me 19, I'll take my 19 any day, because like, something out of that 19 will pan out. Like, there's 19 chances I'm gonna win. Like, 19 chances something good is gonna happen versus 2 or 0. So like, it's always better than 0. As long as it's not 0, like, that mindset to me is like changed forever. I'm like, okay, as long as it's not, I made 2. We're happy this year. We're happy because it's better than. And that's how the alternative is. So my second question to you then is, who is your famous motivator or inspiration that you would look at, like a famous human, and then in your everyday life, who is an inspiration to you? Because like, when we ask about motivators and inspirations, I've noticed that we always go to like the people that have succeeded, and we need those, because those are the ones that like we aspire to be or be there. But then there's those little ones behind us, like, our little pawns, we like to call them, that are so important in our everyday life that inspire us and it pushes and fuels us through. So give me 2 names and why.
Okay,
Yeah.
so narrowing it down is tough, but I'm gonna go with the classic. Steve Irwin has always been my hero since I was a little girl, and he pursued everything with the purest intentions and the biggest heart, and that's what he did all the time, and like without fail, like even when the cameras weren't on, that's what he was doing. In his house, in his neighbor's house, when he was going to visit his family, like it's what everybody did, and he surrounded himself with people that wanted to do the same thing and cared about everything as much as he did, and if they didn't, they quickly learned how to because of how big his heart was and how much he cared about it. And I was just like, that's what I want to be like when somebody gets around me and I talk about something that I'm passionate about, I want them to feel passionate about it. So like putting your everything into something that you're passionate about has always been something that was like really beautiful to me. And I was just like, wow, I wish I could influence people like that. And I found out that you can, even if it's not about animals. Just by being passionate about it and like being carefree and passionate about it, like you don't care what other people think because you know where your heart is, that kind of like love and compassion for other things and other people, and that like unabashed compassion and passion for it is like chef's kiss. Like that's what I want. So I'm gonna stick with Steve Irwin for my like celebrity hero. Although I could pick a lot, but that's the one that's always been number one. And as far as like my in-person hero, it's gotta be Vincent. He is consistently challenging my way of thinking. He's consistently like reinforcing good things in my life and making me think more positively when my default is to think negative, especially in the way of like, he's the one that pointed out like, well, $4 is better than 0. Like you made 1 sale, that's more than none. You have a business, that's more than you had a couple of years ago. You know, like you did it, you already are doing it. Those kinds of like challenges to my like, well, but I only made $3 this month or whatever, like consistently challenging, consistently encouraging, consistently loving where I am not, especially toward myself, which is what he cares about. So it's really important to have somebody like that in your life that challenges you, but from like a loving place. Like he's not mean, he just
Honest.
Doesn't agree with what I'm saying, which is a good thing.
For humans like us, having the opposite, you are like, I call my husband my adversary. Like I think he thinks that's a negative thing, but I think that's like the greatest thing ever, because like there's no one I'd rather butt heads with and like argue with about my points and then be proven wrong to but him. Cause like he's doing it genuinely out of the goodness of his heart because he cares for me. Like not because he wants something from me, not because like he can get whatever he wants anywhere else, right? But like he genuinely wants to still be here because of, you know, we crazy. So like the fact that they're there and willing to have that, like I get it. Like it's so beautiful to have that, and I can't wait till you guys get like we have 14 years, so like that's like you learn to love that even more. Like you learn to like it becomes an addiction to people like us because we're like, so sir, what do you find wrong with this? And they're like, well, and you're like, good, let me fix it. Because like if you can make
like
them
him
like
bouncing ideas off of me and me bouncing ideas off of him is always like really nice. Because we're both very creative, but in very different ways. So as where I'm like more ambitious, he does it for fun. And so he kind of has that like, well, it's okay to just do it like here and there. And it's okay to just do this when you feel like it. And kind of not even like arguing with me, but making me think about it more. Like if I'm complaining about something and I'm like, I just feel like I don't want to do this anymore. he'll be like, okay, well, here are all the things that are good with it, but if you want to leave it, that's okay too. And it makes me have to think about it because I'm not getting advice.
Oh yeah, because now you're like, he's making you responsible for your decision. Like, he's going to support your decision, but he wants you to understand your decision. Like, you're just in your feels right now, but if that's what you want to do and be in your feels, by all means, I'm just gonna let you know that I'm over my, like, it's your feels. Like, it's your feels.
Just validating that whatever choice I make is okay regardless. Like, whatever is best for me. Is what the best choice is. So he's very good.
It's beautiful. I love that, because that's like, I would have said that for my husband too. Like, I say my son all the time, but again, that's on a different spectrum. But my husband is a human, is my human. Like, he's the one that I run all my ideas by. He's the one who, like, he's the one who will motivate me by telling me something that I can't do just because he knows me more than anybody else. And I'm like, really? I don't like that. So I don't like the word can't. And then I'll do it and be like, you did it, so what are you gonna do about it? I'm like, I just wanted to prove you I did it. That's it. That's all I'm doing. Like, nothing else. I can. And I leave it at that, and I love that. Like, it's beautiful. Another question for you is, if there was one thing you could tell, like, so Project Human is launching the 365 PSAs next month. It's the 365 positively sticky affirmations and the things that we should, again, sticky, like, stick something. So what's your sticky affirmation for yourself? Like, your words, something for you that you have found over your years that, like, they've been in your head. For me, it has always been like, I remember the moment I heard these words, and I remember that, like, it was so calming and peaceful, but at the same time so scary that I also, again, you ignore them as you grow older, but it was, do not fear your greatness. And like, I remember those words at 5. Like, I remember that feeling. I remember all that, like, lighting up. And then I feared my greatness for the longest until recently. And it's like I've taken back and reclaimed my words. So what are your words for 2021 for someone who may need to hear them? Because I think that's so important.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say that in my favorite Shakespeare play, which is Twelfth Night, there's a quote that has been translated a lot of different ways or interpreted a lot of different ways, but the quote is, "Be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." So I thought you would like that.
I do like that. They gave me chilies, like, for real, super chilies.
And my advice would be, taking care of yourself is productive.
I love that. Ooh, that'll be a huge pop on one of the days. Ooh, stick that to yourself. Taking care of yourself is productive. It absolutely is. Then I wanted to ask you, we're getting to the point of where we're closing off the interview. I've had, like, an awesome conversation. Like, we've had some awesome flow of a conversation. I love this. It's going to be so educational to people. I wanted to ask you, tell me, we've talked a little bit about it before, but, like, tell me what your first impression of me was in our first meeting. And I wanted to, like, fully, like, the whole child, like, all of it, give me all the goods and this, versus where we are today. Because there's a huge difference in me. And I know I've tried and I've noticed a huge difference. But I also, one of the things that I've learned is that I love feedback. And I think we had that conversation too. It's like, I love feedback. I love to be fed back my own self, because it's thinking about me, because it's all about me. And I think it's so important for people to know, it's like, it is about you. It should be about you. Like, it should be about your growth, but you have to be willing to be able to take the punch that somebody's given if you want it to be about you. So we're at that point of the podcast. Tell me what you think about me, darling. So tell me what you've seen in that.
So the first time I met you was indiscrepant. We have differing views of when we met, but I do not remember the first time. So for me, the first time really actually meeting you, not like in passing, was when I got my headshots done by Will, which was a wild first meeting. You were wearing zebra print pants and high heels with your toes sticking out, which is not for me, but good on you. It's very fashionable. I just don't like it for me because I have beach toes. That's when your toes are so ugly. They only look good in beach sand.
Really? That's a thing?
No, that's what my mom tells me
Oh.
because she doesn't like my feet. Okay, so anyway, so you were wearing zebra print pants. I think you had purple hair at the time, purple or pink, and it was like shorter on the sides and taller in the front, so you had the mohawk kind of thing going on, and you were wearing sunglasses and like a little tank top, and you were like like walking down the sidewalk, and it's like click 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 click, you know, and you're like all that in a bag of Doritos, and you've got your like camera on, and you're like, hey guys, so we're on live here with Will Cook, the amazing, awesome cinematographer, and we are here on a shoot. Like, you were just like talking to your like people on live, and I was like, this girl's too cool for me to be around. I was like, I'm undeserving.
She learned
I remember thinking like you were too cool for me, and I was like, I need to go. And you were there with Will, and we were taking pictures, and you were just kind of like, with Will for a minute, and then once we actually like really got into like posing and taking pictures, you kind of started stepping in a little bit more, and you know, working with me directly and trying to like pose me and like fix my hair and get my makeup to be right, because I had done my own hair and makeup that day, which but you really kind of started getting in there more and more, like as we got comfortable with the setting. And when we took one picture, you would like taught me how to like rest my hand in a certain way, and you were like, I see you with these wicked hands. And basically that's our whole relationship.
And that's the wickedness. Like, that's the wickedness. Absolutely. And I love that we get, like, I love that we have that. Like, I love that we have that moment where, like, we could say the word wicked and know exactly what it means in a whole relationship.
Yeah.
Like, it'll explain everything about us.
It's very iconic.
It is so iconic. So what's the difference between me being so cool back then versus not being so cool now? Because you get to know me a little bit. Like, I'm cool, but like, let's be real. Like,
well, you're a huge dork, so I figured that out after a minute.
like,
you are just like me, where other people are like, oh my god, she's so cool, and then like they get to meet you for more than 12 seconds and they're like, she's not cool at all. Like, cool if we want to flex. Like, if we want to flex, we're like, yeah, I'm an award-winning director, what about it? And then it's like, want to talk about Wonder Woman for a minute?
like, Power Rangers. She's like, Wonder Woman, really gay.
Exactly. We all have like our little things, but we're also like I don't think I've ever met anybody that's like more driven to like get things done to a point where you put on these like incredible timelines, and I'm like, and I mean, every single time, like, you've amazed me in the past, but if you bring me another project and say, we're going to have this done in 1 month, I'm going to have the same reaction where like, this chick is nuts. She's crazy. And then we get it done every single time. So like, I don't know why I'm still surprised, but I think you're crazy every time.
I mean, that's true. Like, that's absolutely true.
Not that I don't think you can do it, because I do, but that doesn't make you less crazy.
No, challenge are the crazy.
Mm-hmm. But you also like are that driven. That's why I know you can do it, like, because you'll forfeit anything and everything else and get every single person. Like, you reach out in emails and I'm like, how'd you even get that person's email? Like, how did you get that contact? And you know, you'll work day and night and you'll be like, hey, I want to meet with you every single day this week. And I will be like, okay, sure. And we just knock things out. It's crazy. So I've never met anybody that's like full on 100% all the time determined to finish stuff as you are. Cause even I'm not like that, and I'm crazy too, but I'm not that crazy. But it's crazy in a good way because you get shit done. Sorry, I curse on your podcast.
You can curse. No, I've like, you can curse. Shit, okay. Shit and fuck is allowed in my podcast. This is not that, you know, that this is not a, like, I'm friendly, but I'm not that friendly. So let's be real. She's like, yeah, no.
But you're also like a little bit more flexible. You're also a little bit more trusting of people. It's a little less of a big deal if things don't go exactly right. And you're kind of learning to, like, from working with other people, how to get the best out of it not being exactly right. Like what we just did with Checkmate, a lot of the stuff that happened was not what was written in the scripts.
No.
And a lot of what people brought was so different from what you or I thought it was going to be. And like, I wrote the characters and you designed the characters. And like, the second we got into rehearsal and asked them, like, well, what do you think is happening in this scene? Or even not even asking some of them, like, I had a very specific idea of some of those characters, and somebody else would come into rehearsal and they would be like, well, so this is what I thought would happen. And I was like, yeah, actually, that's great. And that's how we played it out. So I think you've gone from a very like, no, this is exactly how it has to be, to like, we'll take it 100 times until it's right. Like, you were very like, need it to happen this way, very strict on those details, to being a little bit more like open and flexible and trusting that other people have those creative like needs. And we had so many creative people on this last team, and I was even affected in that way. Like, and that's my directing set. Oh no!
I just want you to know, I saw this happening. I saw this happening, but I didn't think it would happen.
Oh no!
What happened was, I have a backdrop, guys, and backdrop. I blame Will because he's here.
Oh no!
I blame him because it was going great until he got here. So what had happened?
What is happening?
Hey guys, welcome to the
She just climbed to the top of the closet and then fell out of it.
I'm definitely checking in with Mark. We're on this one because this is what I'm posting as our intro. Hey guys,
oh
what happened? Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that happened. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm definitely trusting. More trusting.
Yeah.
More trusting.
Not there yet.
Not there yet. I don't trust you thing. But yeah, I'm definitely more trusting. I think I've had to learn to let go of control. That was the biggest thing in my life, is that if I couldn't control the things in my life around me, then like I didn't have anything to control. And especially when people come from trauma, the way, again, we come from, where I come from, or others come from, we tend, like, once we learn that we have some sense of control within our lives, then like we have to learn to control everything else, because otherwise it falls apart. Like, it falls apart. We can't depend on someone else because it's proven.
Or you feel like it's falling apart.
Or it feels like it's falling apart and it's the end of the world. And so for me,
when in reality it's just growing.
It's just growing. And that's, for me, like, that's what Project Human has taught me, like, genuinely these last 3 years. And again, since meeting my team and meeting you guys. But this Checkmate project, I absolutely had, like, I had to, before we decided to do it, because Rebirth was so different from what we did, and how much control I had on that, and how much control I wanted on that, versus how much control I didn't want to have on this. I wanted to completely delegate my powers. And it was because, like you said, humans around us will point out things about to me. And one of the things that, like, you know, I'm an Advent reader. I love to read, like, it's my thing. And so I've been reading a lot of leadership books and a lot of different things on, you know, what would make a good leader, because that's what I want to be. But it was a conversation from someone that looked at me and said, Adela, if you don't recognize that your control is going to be your downfall, like, you're going to lose everybody you care about, because control was all I cared about. And it wasn't like that I didn't care about you guys or what we did, but I cared about the control of it, because if I controlled it, that meant that it would be the way I wanted it. And Checkmate was nothing like I wanted it in the beginning, like, nothing, not a single thing as I had wanted it. And that was one of the most beautiful lessons I've learned through it. It doesn't matter what I want. Like, it doesn't matter if we do not allow the humans to evolve the want, whatever that want is. And it goes back into, we are developed in who we are as humans, or who we want to be by our humans, by the people around us, our circumstances, our environments. And if it wasn't for humans,
and
like,
not only that, but like considering like what's best for the project. That was something that I had to learn when I was just doing like theater directing, is like, yeah, I would love to work with this person, or yeah, I know that this person's going to show up to rehearsals or whatever. Like, I know that what I want is to have this cast, or to have this set piece, or to have it work like this, even though the script says something different. But you have to cast based on who auditioned best, who is going to be best for the character, who's going to portray them as a 13-year-old girl, as a depressed woman, like whatever the issue is, whatever the topic is on the table. Like, you have to do what's best for the project, for the show, for whatever. And you have to like consistently think about those kinds of things. But then, like, on top of that, when you do something like Checkmate or Rebirth, like, you also have to think about what's best for the human. So not only are you thinking about the human and all of their needs and all of their like creative expression and things like that, like, how are they going to take this character and run with it? Because I have a very specific vision of some of these characters, and that was very contested.
And it wasn't so amazing to have it be completely opposite of our thought.
Yeah, and maybe not even like opposite, but so different from anything that I had like decided that character was. And it was so like refreshing. It was like drinking juice on a hot day. Like, it was like really cool. And a lot of that came from people that I wasn't expecting it to come from.
I love that, because like what you just said was like, it was literally looking like, let's talk, like, we took chess. Like, chess was the oldest game in history. Like, it's the thing, like, we took it and we literally gave it a new meaning, because we gave each piece something to give a new meaning to. So versus the standard rules and traditions of what we did with it, like, we gave chess a new meaning. We gave the way you played a new meaning. And so the fact that we allowed our characters within that constraint to make those decisions in their own individual way goes to show and prove that, again, every perspective is so important, whether it's your vision or not, whether it's right or wrong, like, that perspective is still important. That thought process is still important, because you never know what it'll awaken in you. And the moment you start thinking that you know everything you've done with what you've done is the moment you start failing, or is the moment you start setting yourself up for failure, because then, like we talked back about my control, then nobody else's thought, like, perspective matters. Then you
But if we had gone into that being like, well, no, this is how I wrote it in the script, this is how I want it done, of course they would have done it, and of course they would have let go of that. But like, that's not what the creative process is.
Nope.
And I had to learn that as a director, and I learned it my first time directing, that you cannot smother some of these ideas, because they're so good. And it's going to elevate everyone's performance so much further beyond anything that's ever been done before, because each person's an individual, and they're going to make their own choices, and they're going to make their own like perceptions of what this character is, or who this character is, or how things should be done. And you should listen. And I feel like doing this project was really cool, because we had so many more people involved, and because it was less of like a take on reality and more of like a abstract creative idea. And so for you to get to kind of like take a step back from the like director role, or like the in control role, and just kind of like see how that creative process like makes it better, I feel like that was really good for you.
I can't tell you how motivated I am for that to be my life than anything else. Like, I can't wait to be put into my place of a role and be like, this is your role, Adela, sit your butt back down. Like, Will did that to me twice. I think twice. He put me back and like put me, but again, that control issue, that learning to rewire that brain, knowing that like, you have to trust the people that you say you trust to do the job that you give them to do. And if you can't do that, then what is the point of y'all even being there? And again, that was what I wanted to learn through Checkmate. Like, I wanted to learn that, because even before, when we started Checkmate, like, I had a very specific character. Like, I will say there was one thing I was not giving up on. That was me and Shelby. I was like, nope, that's the one I want. Nope, that's what I want. Nope, that's what I want. Everything else I don't care about. But again,
getting to see how opening that door to those people, and like, to be fair, a lot of those people did not have huge roles in production. They just had huge roles on screen. And so to see how even those pawns can influence the bigger picture by just choosing like one choice for their character, and me going, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. I think that was really good for you, because it's really like,
it's what
you
Project
have to put trust in the people that you put trust in, and everybody is here for a reason. Like nobody is here, nobody signed up to not do a good job. And so like putting that trust in those people and having them follow through, I think was really good for you.
That motto of like Project Human doesn't work if human doesn't work. Well, the human doesn't work if you don't allow the human to flourish and work either. So it's like that whole you know, such a perplexity in how we phrase that, and how again I've had to relearn and redo those things in my own way of what they mean to me, even from the beginning of what I thought Project Human meant. But again, having the like nothing works if the human doesn't work, and that was one of the lessons. Like I said, you guys taught me that, and so I'm so appreciative, so grateful for that, because I can't wait for the next process of what we do, and I'm just sitting back going like, that's my boo.
Yeah.
My name's just there.
Like I'm doing these projects and have like being forced to trust people because you don't have any choice is going to like further your career by so much, because you won't be the only one doing the work anymore.
and I think that's again what I really and it comes down to like, this isn't about the careers. This isn't about like what we do with Project Human. It's nothing about the money. It's not about like fame, things that we know that like we know what we're going to accomplish for our own selves in this together. But what it is the teaching process, just like you said. Like if we don't do these things, and if we don't put ourselves in these and set these conversations back and understand it, then all those aspirations in our own personal life don't matter, because like we are what we put out to the world. We really are. And just because you say you're not doesn't mean your actions are not saying. Like you can say all you want, but we are what we put out to the world. And I think that's so awesome, again, for us all to see that. Like we've seen our growth and seen how we've grown just because we believed in the motto, human is important. Like nothing else.
I also think that had a pretty similar effect on everybody that was involved, because, and you'll realize this too, when you get onto somebody else's set, or you have somebody else as a director, or you know, somebody that has not learned how to let go of that control, or how to just produce something that everybody's involved in, or maybe it's just not that project. It is nowhere near as open and constructive as our set was, as our rehearsals were, as our script was. Like we were very lenient, and a lot of people have never experienced that before, where they can open up and express ideas and be true to the character that they thought that they were going to be, or even that they thought that they should be. And being that like open and honest created some really beautiful shots that we got, that would not have captured.
You don't cry. I don't cry. Like we cry for other reasons, but we don't cry because like we cry. Like we cried for an hour and a half because we're humans. Like an hour and a half
screaming, or
like all raw cuts. Right. And that's, I think that's so beautifully put. We have to allow that human to have the creative space, no matter what, whether it's business, whether it's a project, whatever it is, that creative space of that self-evolution has to be there. And that's something that I have experienced in other sets where I'm like, what in the world? It's not like I get it, but like really? Like that's really? Okay, sure.
And a lot of the people that were on the set were more than happy to deal with that. Like that's what they signed up for. Like when they decided to do acting or whatever, like a lot of my theater people were like, yes, ma'am, absolutely, 100%.
I know. I was all like, they're like, yes, ma'am, yes. I was like, I'm all for the ma'ams and all that stuff, because like I love it, because I ma'am and serve everybody. But like to have that much discipline for them to just follow in line of
and
that.
They were gonna do whatever we wanted them to do. So a lot of actors are like exposed to that. Like I'm the director, what I say goes, for sure, 100%. And they would have followed it no matter what. But having like a more open, more like communicative version of their character and their development, and allowing them to be more creative with it, is something that a lot of these people have never experienced before. So I think we created a really cool space, and it's because we were trusting in their creative process. And I think that that's something that you've grown in quite a bit. And it's something that I continue to grow in every time I choose like a directing role or a leadership role. So I think it's really cool.
Well,
we grew ourselves and grew everybody else.
I know. Well, I thank you so much for helping me grow. I think it's like I said, we're nowhere near stopping. We're definitely continuing, but you know, it's definitely a beautiful process. So let's finish this off, because you and I could talk for like 18 hours. Tell me where everybody can find you, your name again, and then where they can find you and where they can find Pink Girl Closet.
Okay, so my name is Nicole Labadie. I can be namely found on Instagram. It's at Nicole Labadie, with 2 E's at the end, Labadiee, at Nicole Labadie. And Pin Curl Closet can be found at etsy.com/shop/pin curl closet, like pin curls like in your hair, because it's like a vintage. And I can also be found on my Instagram, which is linked from my personal Instagram, but it's at Pin Curl Closet on Instagram as well. And those are the main places to find me. I don't really frequent Facebook a lot, so.
Yeah, So she's like I wanted to let you know there's something you taught me that I'm absolutely in love with. It's your facial expressions. I love your facial expressions for finishing stuff. And every time somebody says something, I do the Nicole, or it's the, like, your eyes, and you're just the.
Love that that's the Nicole. I have so many facial expressions.
There's so many, and I'm just like, every time I'm like, and it's just like the eye and then the eyebrow, but then like all this, right, it's that. And so I've like incorporated that into my life. So thank you so much, because I love it. Because like now I'm like, just read it. It's here. I'm just not gonna say anything.
I also discovered that I blink like one eye at a time, which drives me crazy, because I've seen it in your pictures, I've seen it in Will's pictures, I've seen it in videos. It's
because of that face.
Yeah, probably.
She trained the face. She's got to retrain it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me and being part of this podcast and having the conversation with me. I think it's going to definitely be a huge positive thing for people, especially for high functioning productivity people, because again, we like to do things, and knowing that there is us there that exist, and that we feel the same way that they feel, and yet we're really trying to just navigate our own way through it is so important. So thank you so much for the conversation. I think it's beautiful. It was awesome. The rest of you, please make sure you follow Project. Welcome to my English speaking world, guys. You follow Project Human, Think, a new way to think about mental health. Follow it at think dash ing, or no, hold on, sorry guys, this is what happens when I follow through. At thinking a new way to, or I think a new way to think, that's it. And one day I'm gonna figure that out, guys. Think a new way to think. I hate that this is what happens, guys, when I do the thing. Now I'm stuck on the Paulo because now I have friends. This is what ADHD does to you guys, okay? It goes into like one thing, you're so set on it, and then Paulo comes in, and now you have a whole friend scene in your head, and you're trying to work through saying something that's like ridiculous. This is high function ADHD.
We'll link it in the comments or something.
Coming back to it, follow us at Think, a new way to think about mental health, and at think-ing.org, thinking.org. There you go. See, I can come through it once I talk through. You have to talk through, guys, your process. It happens. Rewiring yourself back. And that's what it's all about. So thank you so much again. This is what we're here to do. We're really here to think through our own mental and emotional health, and to do it in a safe community, through a safe conversation. So check us out, follow us. We love you. And until next time.